This is Jeff Blair from Sportsnet. I may not like chicken wings, but I do like the walk-off with Scott and Adam.
So I saw some stats on Twitter this morning that kind of opened my eyes a little. I kind of went because listen, I've been an Alek Manoah fan since he was called up, but when you see it in black and white, so after making just 9 minor league starts, Alek Manoah started his MLB career. 22 games is what he's pitched so far. 11-2, a 3.06 ERA, 145 ERA plus, 1.04 WHIP, 10 Ks per nine. He had another dominant performance yesterday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon against the A's. How good can this kid be? Like, should we just be happy with what he's doing, or does his ceiling even exceed what we're seeing?
Yeah, I asked Dan Schulman that this morning, and Dan goes back to he goes way back before I do. He, of course, was a day one Jays fan, but he also covered the Jays when Halladay, Carpenter, and Escobar were coming up, and I was kind of at the tail end of that. I think my first year covering the Jays was when Roy Halladay actually went down to rebuild his delivery. So I don't have the mind's eye memory of Dave Stieb or any of those guys. Right? But from what I've seen, and I compare him to some of the other really good young pitchers I've covered, I'm kind of with Dan. I put him. I don't put him in the Halladay camp yet, obviously, because Roy
Because he's
Halladay
22 games into his career. Yeah.
exactly. But would his low point be Chris Carpenter or something like that? I can see that. I can see that. I think he's going to be a. Yeah, I feel like I should be knocking on wood when I say this, but if he stays healthy, if he stays healthy, I would not be surprised by the end of the year. He's not sort of the de facto number two in this staff. I'm not a big fan of saying this guy's an ace. This guy isn't. I mean, Barker gets into that all the time. I said, Kevin, there are like four aces in baseball. The rest of them, there's a bunch of real good number ones and a bunch of real good number twos. But I think by the end of this year, I think Jose Barrios is can be on a different level than anybody else in this rotation. But I think Alek Manoah will be right there with him. And that's not to take anything away from Kevin Gossman, who is going to be perfectly fine. But I really think that I look at what Alek Manoah did to the New York Yankees. I look at what he did this weekend, and I mean this isn't anywhere near as good as he was last year when he was at his peak. I mean, you can tell he's still sort of feeling his way through. He talked about not really having the feel of the change up. The first pitch change he threw to Stephen Voigt that was hit out for the home run. That's not going to happen that often.
Mm-hmm.
What amazes me about Alek Manoah, though, and I wish I had the stats in front of me, but they showed it on Blue Jay Central before his first start of the year. Alek Manoah's numbers against the 3, 4, and 5 hitters in a lineup, they're there with Max Scherzer's.
Wow.
Comparing his numbers against 3, 4, and 5 last year, and he fits into the top 5 alongside guys like Max Scherzer. And that tells me if you are able to dominate the middle of the order at a young age, I mean, how can you not say that? How can you not say the sky's the limit for him? And he's got all the other stuff you like to see, right? He's got the arrogance. He's obviously got the size, but he's very comfortable with himself on the mound and talking about himself. You talk to Alek about things like we asked him one time about will you use PitchCom, and he said, I'm a visual learner. Like I don't know. I still like to see the signs being flashed. Pitching coaches tell me stuff, but I need to see it with my own eyes. And he was talking about Kevin Gossman and how I'd like to incorporate some of the stuff that Kevin Gossman does with his changeup, but I need to see what it actually is. He can't tell me over the phone, look, I take my finger like this and move it like I need to see it. And I thought, man, this is a guy that that really understands how to use all the information he has and filter out the stuff, right? And I remember, and I tell the story all the time. I had a conversation with Paul Quantrill one time, and we were talking about his son Cal, and we were talking about Cal's development as a pitcher. And Paul said, "I told Cal very quickly, there's something every major league player has to learn at some point early in their career, and that's how to tell your superior or your coach to fuck off."
Right.
And that and really what he's saying is you have to tell him that great, that's enough, that's not me. And I think Alek, from talking to people, is like that. Now, he's not going to probably use those words, but he's like that. He is not afraid to say, this is what I'm about, this is what I have to do to perform. And I just think you watch that dude at Yankee Stadium standing on the mound, and there are guys you watch pitcher play at Yankee Stadium, and you go, the stage is made for him. He just like sucks up all the energy and sucks up everything in the stage. And, he does it in a way that, makes you realize that he realizes that the game doesn't start until he throws the pitch. It's his game. He owns the field.
You kind of touched on it there. Like, that is one thing that has stood out to me about Alek Manoah, is that his confidence level, his mental acumen. Like, there were a couple times last year where he was roughed up a little bit. I don't think we've really seen him be truly roughed up, but roughed up a little bit, pulled from the game in the fourth. And there's a lot of times you see 23-year-old kids getting pulled where they come into the dugout and they're throwing their glove and they're all upset and nobody should talk to them for a while. And he was the complete opposite, right? Instantly, he's talking to the catcher. He's talking to the coach. He's going over what he can do. Like, just the maturity level on a young pitcher like that, it just stood out to me. I was just like, This is crazy to see.
You know what I like about him? When he comes out of a game and he hasn't pitched well, we haven't seen it that often, but when he comes out of a game and he hasn't pitched well, he goes in and does this stuff that pitchers do after games, and then he comes out and sits in the dugout. Same thing, we've seen that with Jose Barrios in games where he hasn't had a good game. He'll go in, get rubbed down or whatever the hell it is they do, and come out and sit in the dugout and be on the front step, or quite often sit over in that corner where Springer and all those guys are. And that kind of sends a signal to your teammates, right? That you are, even if you kind of stunk the joint out that night, you're not embarrassed by it. You got things under control. You can't wait to get the ball the next time. And I think it's really important. I think a lot of it goes back to his upbringing. This is a guy, we all know the story. This is a guy who came from nothing, and he's told the story about a single mom who had to cut back on what she ate so her two growing boys could eat. And it's all true. The story's been checked out by people who do that. It's all true. And I just think he appreciates what he has and understands that there's a lot more ahead of him. And I think he just likes where he is right now, and he likes what he's doing. And that I think for a young pitcher that just makes all the things you were going to go through, all the learning experiences, easier to digest when you're happy with who you are and happy where you are.
He's such a baseball guy. I've heard him refer to himself in interviews as big-bodied. Like, only a pitcher would do that, right? Like,
yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, he is. He is what he is, Yeah. And I think the Jays as an organization, when they brought him in and when they drafted him out, I'll give the Jays credit for this. It's something Dante Bichette said about Bo. When Bo was drafted, Dante said, we were so happy we were drafted by the Blue Jays because they were the only organization that when they sat down and talked to the family, they were the only organization that didn't say to Bo, hey, that leg kick thing you're doing? That's kind of the one part of your game we're not all that thrilled with. And Dante said the Jays were the only organization that said, fine, we'd like to see you maybe control it a little bit with two strikes, but if it's working, You know, if it works in the minors, if it works at single A and double A and in the majors, don't change anything. And the Jays under Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins really do have that mindset. Like they don't put people, for an organization that's really analytically inclined, they don't put people into molds. They're prepared to let somebody do something outside the box as long as it works.